All right, so we'll go ahead and get started since we're right at the top of the hour. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our 1-hour complimentary webinar about the newly released VExDAM 9.0. My name is Tiffany Stefanescu and I'm joined by my colleague Brian Holland. To give you an outline of what we'll be discussing today, I'll first give a quick introduction to Trinity Consultants and Breeze software, and then Brian will provide you with an overview of VExDAM 9, including the many new tools and features available. After the software overview, Brian will then begin the live demonstration of VExDAM 9. At the end of the demo, we'll wrap up with some pricing information, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. A few things we want to point out before we begin is first, that we will send all presented information to you via email after the webinar, including a presentation and answers to any questions. For any questions we don't have time to answer during the webinar itself, we'll include answers to in this post-webinar email. Also, since we're limited to just 1 hour for this webinar, all attendees will be muted to avoid interruptions. So if you have a question, please type it into the questions section of the GoToWebinar panel. We'll be keeping an eye on those questions throughout the webinar and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. Lastly, we just want to mention that this is a brief 1-hour overview focusing on this newly released version. If you'd like to participate in a training course on VExDAM, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to provide you with some training options. So to go ahead and jump into the introduction, Trinity was founded in 1974 in Dallas, Texas. Trinity started with one person in one office and a focus on air quality services, and we have since expanded our footprint and breadth of services offered over the past 4 decades. Today, we provide global EH&S services in over 50 locations. We have offices across North America and in Europe, the Middle East, Australia, and Asia. Today, we serve more than 2,500 clients annually. We offer EH&S consulting and engineering services, including EH&S modeling and management software solutions, professional training, and much more. We also have an ISO-based quality management system, and we're certified in our Dallas, Texas office. So Breeze is Trinity's EH&S software data and services division. We offer powerful Windows-based products for conducting tank emissions calculations and also for modeling the impacts of air emissions, fires, and explosions. Our programs have intuitive interfaces to help set up even the most complicated modeling cases. And our programs also have sophisticated modeling setup and results presentation tools, such as 2D and 3D visualization, data processing tools, the ability to export to Google Earth, and much more. And many of these you'll see during the demo today. Similar to Trinity, Breeze started with a focus on air dispersion modeling programs, but today over 4,000 professionals in 90 countries worldwide use Breeze to assess the impacts of air emissions, fires, and explosions, and also for conducting tank emission calculations. So just to give you an overview of the software programs we offer, we provide air dispersion modeling software for continuous emissions, mobile emissions, and for conducting human health risk assessments. And beside each of these categories, you'll see the software programs we offer that fall into them. We also offer risk management and emergency response software for accidental chemical release hazard and consequence analyses, Breeze Incident Analyst, which many of you are probably familiar with, as well as Breeze LFG Fire Risk fall into this category. And of course, we offer explosion damage and injury assessment software, which VExDAM falls into. In addition to all of these modeling programs, we offer meteorological and terrain data. We can provide the data for practically any location in the world in a variety of formats. We offer professional training, both custom and off the shelf. For VExDAM in particular, we have most of the courses are custom courses. And Brian Holland, who I'm joined by, is our primary course instructor. So for these ExDAM courses, he can either travel to the client's site and provide the training there, or they can travel to our office in Dallas, Texas for the course, and we can tailor the course to best suit their needs. In addition to the training, we offer custom software solutions, such as real-time accidental release modeling systems that can be customized for your facility and to meet your specific modeling needs. And we also offer advanced EH&S impact modeling services. And we work on a variety of modeling projects for clients around the world, including assessing the impacts of air dispersion, fires, and explosions. The last program I'll talk about is a new program to our Breeze family. It's Breeze Tank ESP, which can be used for conducting tank emissions calculations. We took over all the sales for Tank ESP in October of 2017 when Trinity acquired TGB Partnership. And earlier this year, we released the all-new Breeze Tank ESP software product suite version 5.0. This new version includes revised calculation methodologies, new pure chemical and meteorological data sets, as well as 3 worst-case short-term emission calculation methods based on technical guidance from API and TCEQ. If you're familiar with TankESP, it was previously available for purchase in a spreadsheet format as well as a database format. And with this new product suite that we're offering now, it's available in 3 new editions: TankESP Pro, FX, and LT. So that's a good brief overview of Trinity Consultants and Breeze Software, as well as the offerings we provide. So with that, I'll pass the ball to Brian, who will provide you with information about the new features in VExDAM 9, as well as the live demonstration.
All right. As Tiffany said, my name is Brian Holland, and I'll be going through a technical overview of what's new in version 9. What I'll cover is first just a basic introduction to ExDAM for those who may not know all the technical details of the model. Then we'll cover what's new in version 9, and then I'll do just a short demo of a couple of the major features that are new in version 9. All right, so in any explosion modeling system, there's a trade-off between how capable and powerful the system is, the method is, and the cost and the effort required to do the modeling. So on the traditional approaches, on the simple end of things, are the lookup table approaches or empirical radius-based models that just give a symmetrical region of impact around a central point. So those types of models give you limited output information. It's just basically this is the safe distance, and they have limited accuracy and capability because they're assuming completely flat open areas and aren't modeling any damage to buildings or anything like that. The advantage of those models is they're relatively easy to use and can run on any computer. At the other end of the spectrum, you have computational fluid dynamics, or CFD models, that are very powerful. When used properly, can give very accurate, detailed output information, but they're relatively difficult to use and are expensive and very time-consuming to run, and you need a powerful computer. And it's especially a problem for modeling cases that cover a large area. If you have a facility that is 2 kilometers by 3 kilometers and you're trying to model that in CFD, that's going to be pretty time consuming and pretty difficult. So falling in between those is where we see VExDAM. So ExDAM has more realism and accuracy and capability than the simple models because it accounts for building shielding, it models damage and injury, and at the same time, it's still much simpler and much faster to run than CFD models. So we think it's sort of the best of both worlds for a lot of applications. So ExDAM has both the high explosive capability and vapor cloud explosion capability. And the main thing it adds on top of the radius type empirical models would be damage injury calculations, shielding calculations, and much better and more impactful and meaningful graphics. So I'll go just briefly through the technical approach that ExDAM uses before we get into what's new in version 9. As the starting point, ExDAM calculates an initial overpressure and impulse field, so the initial effects of the blast, assuming just using industry standard empirical models as the basis. So it starts with using either the US TNT equivalency model for high explosives or the TNO multi-energy model for vapor cloud explosions. For vapor clouds, we're planning with our next release to add a second model option, which will be the Baker-Strelo-Tang multi-energy option. So it's important to have a separate vapor cloud explosion model because vapor cloud explosions behave very differently from high explosives. One of the most important differences is, depending on the environment, how congested and confined the surroundings are. The same vapor cloud could potentially produce a variety of different strengths of explosion. So we need a dedicated model that can capture that variation. So ExDAM starts with those models as the foundation, and then it builds on top of that. The first thing it adds is shielding. So it takes essentially the open area blast wave, and then adds in the shielding effect of any objects that are going to block that blast wave. So you can see in the top right on this slide a person and the shielded area behind the torso of the person. In the bottom right, you can see a blast coming sort of from the top right of this image. So you see the orange contours that represent relatively high overpressures. This compound has a blast wall around it. So you drop from orange to yellow, so lower pressure as a result of the shielding from the blast wall. Then the solid structures are providing still more shielding. So you see those blue areas that are heavily shielded because a permanent building is giving a protected area immediately behind those buildings. So that's the shielding approach. An important part of how that works is that it does consider structure failure. So if you have a window that's destroyed by an explosion, but a solid wall that's not destroyed, the model is smart enough to know that the window doesn't provide shielding, but the wall does. So you'll see overpressure penetrating into buildings through broken windows, but people standing behind a wall might be protected. The next thing that ExDAM adds is damage calculation. So using a pressure impulse diagram basis, ExDAM is able to assess the damage that would be caused to a variety of different structure and material types by a given strength of explosion. So as you set up buildings in ExDAM, you can account for this. You can do these damage calculations using either a fast, simple method or a very detailed method that gives you a lot of information back. The simple method is you simply use one block to represent each building. So you just put in a single square to represent a building, and then you assign a general construction type like wood frame house. Then for buildings that are more important or more sensitive or that you want to analyze in more detail, you can actually add in all of the structural details. So in the apartment building that you see modeled here, we have the wood paneling modeled, the steel structure of the building modeled, the windows, the sheet metal doors. All of these components are modeled individually. So this allows you to see in the model results the places where all or most of the structure is destroyed, versus as you get farther away from the explosion, you might have windows that are blown out and panel doors that are blown apart, but the structure of the building remains intact. So that's the damage calculations in ExDAM. You also have the ability to customize those materials if you have something unusual, like extremely thick reinforced concrete that you might use in an area that's prone to explosions, something along those lines. Injury calculations are done on a similar pressure impulse diagram basis, so you can place model people anywhere in the model that you wish, and ExDAM will simulate damage or injury, or it will simulate injury to 28 different body parts in each person. And so again, it's done on a pressure impulse diagram basis, so it accounts for things like the fact that an eardrum is more sensitive to overpressure, while long bone injuries like broken legs and broken arms are caused more by impulse than they are by pressure. Another aspect of the ExDAM algorithm that many people don't know about is that you can model the flying debris from an explosion as well. So this is called secondary fragmentation. So when you have a blast wave that shatters glass or shatters brick or something like that and sends flying debris, ExDAM can model that. That's very important because in many cases, those are a key cause of injuries. So that is something you need to look at to get accurate injury modeling. And the HExFrag add-on module for ExDAM is what allows that. All right, so the last thing we'll look at before we look at what's new in version 9 is just a quick comparison to the other types of models. So ExDAM versus the simpler radius-based or empirical models. ExDAM gives you more accuracy and more information because it is accounting for shielding, it is doing damage and injury calculations, it also gives you much better and more impactful graphics. So one of the problems with the simple radius-based models is if the output from the model is just a table that says the safe distance, the safe standoff distance is 1.3 kilometers, that means much less to a decision maker who doesn't know the details of the hazard and the explosion modeling than if that person sees a 3D image of what kind of damage and injuries you would expect in their buildings. So that's a very valuable tool, especially for conveying results to decision makers and clients and things like people like that. ExDAM also is actually cheaper than a lot of the packages that are used for these radius-based models. So because it doesn't have some of the other types of models like thermal radiation or things like that, ExDAM can give you that enhanced capability without making you pay for those other models that aren't explosion models. Compared to CFD, there are certainly cases where CFD is what is necessary to get the right, the kind of output that you need. But in many cases, ExDAM is able to model most explosion scenarios. So in most cases, you can use ExDAM in place of CFD. You do that while still getting very good graphical output like CFD, but you do it at much lower computational cost and much lower overall time and cost than you would for CFD. So now we'll talk about what's new in version 9. So these are the main new features in version 9, aside from just bug fixes that we are always implementing. First, there's a new vapor cloud explosion fuel properties calculator. This basically allows you to bring any type of vapor into the model. So you can model any flammable vapor, not just a select set that we have built into the program. Next, we have new types of high explosives. Previously, the model just had TNT. Now you can choose from several different explosives. Then we have made a major performance enhancement to the program. It's going to make it much more stable and powerful, especially for really large runs where you have a large number of buildings where they're modeled in a lot of detail. And then we just have improved compatibility with Windows 10 and AutoCAD drawing files. So let's talk about each of those a little bit. First, the Vapor Cloud Fuel Properties Calculator. So this allows you to, or gives you an easier way to model vapor cloud explosions that involve a chemical that's not built into the program. So we have a list of common flammable vapors, everything from methane to propane to ethylene that are built into the program. So you can just select them from the fuel type dropdown. But this new feature makes it easier, much easier to model things that aren't in that list. So the process for doing this is simply you look up a couple of basic parameters of the chemical that you're modeling. So the chemical formula and then the enthalpy of formation, and a good resource that covers most flammable chemicals where you can find both of those pieces of information is this webbook.nist.gov website. I'll show all of that in the demo example that I'll do in a few minutes. Then you take that information you've looked up, you enter that into this fuel properties calculation tool, and then ExDAM automatically calculates the parameters that the model needs to properly simulate that vapor. So that would include the net combustion energy, molecular weight, and the stoichiometric concentration, so the ideal ratio of fuel to air for that particular chemical. So I'll show a demo of that in just a few minutes, but it makes it much easier to model different types of vapors. Next, new high explosive types. So as I said, previously TNT was the only explosive type built into the program. So now we have added this explosive dropdown where you can choose one of several different types of common high explosives. So you can see the full list here. So the model uses a relative effectiveness, or RE, factor to essentially convert these explosives into an equivalent amount of TNT. So C4, for example, is a more powerful explosive than TNT. So if you choose C4 as the explosive type here, the program will make that mass of C4 be essentially 1.37 times more powerful than the equal mass of TNT would have been. So in addition to allowing you to add or to use a wider variety of explosive types in ExDAM, this tool also allows you to add your own explosive types. So if you have some other high explosive that's not on the list, you can add that yourself. And I'll demonstrate that in an example in just a few minutes as well. The next big change is a major improvement in the stability and performance of the program. So we did this we found a way to allow ExDAM to address twice as much memory as it could previously, which running out of memory, especially on larger projects, but even on some smaller ones, especially on some computers, had caused problems for some users in the past. So now the program is able to handle projects that are twice as large. So the high end of what you can do with ExDAM is much greater now than it used to be. On top of that, that performance benefit and that trickles down to even smaller projects. So you'll see all of your projects will be more stable. You'll have a lot fewer crashes and freezes and things like that, but especially when you're dealing with those really large projects. A great thing about this is not something that you need a 16 gigabyte of RAM computer or a 64 gigabyte of RAM computer to take advantage of. This benefit is apparent on any computer that you use, from a basic laptop to a powerful desktop modeling computer. So everyone should see a pretty big benefit from this enhancement. This is one example of that. This is a case, this is a facility that has 88 buildings, most of which have over 1,000 separate components to them. Some are well over 1,000 components. So it's a very complex modeling scenario that we did. We used this for a project a while ago. When we did this project originally in the old version of ExDAM, we had to use our dedicated desktop modeling computer that has a really large cache, a really high amount of RAM, a really fast processor, and so on. That was the only way we could model this. I couldn't take my basic, travel laptop, which is not a bad laptop, but it's not extremely high powered. I couldn't run this case in the old version of ExDAM. Now with the enhancement, I'm actually able to, I'll show the video here. I'm actually able to not just run this, but also do all of the post-processing, producing output graphics and videos and so on on my regular laptop. So I no longer need the modeling computer to do this. So you can think of then how much more we're able to do with that big modeling computer if we need that. Let's see, where's my, yeah. So, all right, so here, pull up this video. So this is a video created in ExDAM on my portable travel-friendly laptop, not our high-powered modeling computer. And we're able to do all of the animation and graphical analysis and everything now, even on a more basic machine like that. So this should give some really big benefits to especially the heavier users of ExDAM. All right, then the last major improvement I want to talk about before I show the demo is going to be the compatibility improvements that we've made. We've improved Windows 10 compatibility, so the program is now fully compatible with Windows 10. it was always able to run on Windows 10, but we had users that had issues with things like font sizes being strange, especially on high resolution monitors and some things like that. So all of that should be completely fixed now. So you should see totally normal performance on Windows 10. Then secondly, AutoCAD polyline objects. So ExDAM has always been, or the 3D extend module in ExDAM has always been able to import these. However, there have been certain types of polyline objects that were not able to be imported. So you get most of your drawing, but you'd lose some of the details. We've now added support for polyline object types that use bulges. So you'll see more of the details being able to be captured and fewer of those types of issues. All right, so next I'll show a demo of a couple of the major features. So I already showed an example, a real-world example of the performance improvements in the new version of ExDAM, but now I'll show some of the enhancements. Oh, let me get my key. Sorry about that. I'll show some of the other enhancements to help model different types of vapor cloud explosions and different types of high explosives. So to start off, I'm going to just open up an example case of a detailed building and sample grid that I've already created. So we've got these, and what I'll do is I'll show how the new tools for adding new types of high explosives work and vapor cloud explosions work. So starting off with the high explosives, so what's new here is we now can choose the explosive type. So you click on the explosive drop-down, you can choose from a variety of different explosives. Then in addition to just being able to choose something like C4 or RDX from the list of explosives, I can also either customize these or I can add new explosives. So to do any of that, you can click the Edit RE Factor button. So the RE factor, remember that's the relative effectiveness that we use to translate the effects of other types of explosives into an equivalent amount of TNT. So I click that button, you can see the list that we have built into the program. So you could edit these, like say that this one is not, this is one that I added, so I'm gonna delete that and I'll show how to create that again. Let's say that I take black powder and I wanted to make this more conservative. I could just go in and change the relative effectiveness factor to whatever value I want. So I raised it from 0.46 to 0.6. That's going to produce more powerful explosions with black powder. And I could save that. And you always have this default button that will roll back the database to the original set of RE factors. So you always have that available to you if you make a mistake. But the other way I could do this is I could leave black powder at its original value, and then I could simply add a new record to the database and call it conservative black powder, and then put that in there. So this could be just a variation on one of the existing explosives, or you could add a completely new explosive that's not on the list here. Then you simply save that list and close that, and then you're able to select whatever you added or modified, and you'll be able to model that. All right, so that's the high explosive. So then if I wanted to add that to the model, I would simply, I can either click on an existing object to add the explosive, or I can set the location I want, put it at 70 meters away, click add. And so here I've added that high explosive to the model. All right, so next I'll show the vapor cloud explosion tools. So we have the built-in fuel types in ExDAM that cover some of the most common flammable vapors. However, let's say we wanted to model something like propine. It's not in this list. So what I would do in that case is change the fuel type to user-defined. Then we need to enter the molecular weight, stoichiometric concentration, and net combustion energy for whatever new vapor we're trying to add and model. So if I don't know those parameters, then that's where this fuel property calculation tool makes this process much easier. So I can select that, and now I need just the chemical formula, how many carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms are in one molecule, and then the enthalpy of formation. A great resource where I can look that up is, and you can look up just about any common flammable chemical in this list, as well as lots of other chemicals. So this is the NIST chemistry webbook, webbook.nist.gov. So if you go here, I searched for propine, so I pull up the page for that chemical. I've got the chemical formula right there, C3H4. So I'm going to put that in, C3H4. Then I need the enthalpy of formation. So that enthalpy of formation you can find on this site under gas phase thermochemistry data. So if I click there, so this is the enthalpy of formation for propine in the gas phase. So it's 185.4 kilojoules per mole. So I just put in my number there, 185.4. Click OK, and now watch, you'll see the net combustion energy, molecular weight, and stoichiometric ratio are all automatically updated to be appropriate for propine. So now I can add in a vapor cloud, set the explosion strength in the TNO explosion model, and set my location, and then just add that to the model. Got my vapor cloud, and just like that, we're ready to run. So select everything, include everything in the model, and call it propine, and run the model. All right, so those are the two major features that are new in this version of ExDAM. And so while this is going to take a few more seconds to run, I think this will take less than a minute to run overall. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and enter those in the questions form on the GoToWebinar. And in the meantime, I can answer a few questions that came in the morning version of this webinar that we did. So one of those questions was just asking to confirm that you can modify the RE parameter, so the relative effectiveness parameter for different explosive types under the high explosives. And yes, that's correct. So you have three options. You can basically choose an existing off-the-shelf explosive type from the model, or you can edit one of these existing explosives using the edit RE factor list, or you can add your own explosives. So those are the three ways you can use that new tool. Then we had another question this morning, and so my model run is completed. We had another question this morning that was asking if you need internet access for ExDAM. You do not. Using your USB key that unlocks the program, you can unlock and use ExDAM and all the features regardless of whether you have internet access or not. And then we got a third question this morning that was dealing with in the custom training courses that we do, can we do cases that are specific to the client rather than general training cases? And yes, that's actually what we normally do. We normally ask our custom training clients to bring some example data from the real facilities and real cases that they're trying to model, and we do our training of how to use the interface using the client's actual data. So we spend most of our time actually building your facility, building your cases in the model. All right, so our example run is completed, and so I'll just show the results here. So first, I'll show the damage and injury block results. So here you're seeing that we have the models predicting in this case that this propine vapor cloud explosion would essentially blow out all of these windows and would cause slight damage to the structure of the building, but the structure would be mostly intact. So it's mostly just the window glass, all the glazing that's blown out, and just on the front sides, you see in the back, everything is sufficiently shielded that there's no damage on the back side. You can also look at our contour, cross-section of the contours, and just to show some of the options I have here, I can change everything about how this looks and how this information is presented. So for example, I can change this default logarithmic scale that lets me capture a really large range of overpressures to a linear scale. And if I want to zoom in on certain overpressure levels or make this color scale match, make it so that red is what I would consider a very bad hazard and blue is something that's very safe, I can also change the color scale. I can set let's say I want the maximum overpressure on the scale to be 8, so 8 psi, which would cause some real structure damage. I want that to show up as red, and then it may be 0.1 psi, which is the value at which we start to break glass, is the lowest level that I'm concerned with. I can set that for the minimum. So now these colors are a lot more meaningful. Orange is somewhat bad, red would be extreme, very bad, blue is not bad. So we got a much more meaningful color scale there. Then the last thing that I'll show in the demo here is the isosurface function. I'll show the overpressure isosurface. So here I can view the isosurfaces of different overpressure levels resulting from the explosion. And so that basically allows me to sort of see the progression where I have shielded areas behind the buildings, for example, versus unshielded areas. And if you're not familiar with this, you can animate all of these things, and you can control all the details of how that works under the display options here. So I have under view animation, right now I have this active widgets turned on, so that means it's going to animate the isosurfaces of the expanding shockwave from the explosion. I can also turn on rotate scene, and you can use this to create videos by just getting what you want in the display here and then going to start video capture. So it's very easy to create very nice videos in ExDAM. All of the videos in ExDAM don't work in real time. They are so they basically don't capture you fooling around with the menus. They only capture when something actually changes in the view. So if I wanted to turn rotation on and off, turn the isosurface animation on and off, I can do that. I can zoom in and out, change what shows here, and none of the time that I spend fooling around in the menus ends up in the video. The final video just automatically ends up looking like a very clean, like you knew what you were doing the whole time when you made it, essentially, is how that tool works. So that's a little bit of an overview of just a simple modeling case and what's illustrating some of what's new in version 9. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tiffany.
Okay, so we will wrap up with covering some pricing information. Just a reminder, as Brian mentioned already, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them into the question section of the GoToWebinar panel. And any that come in while we cover this pricing information portion, we will answer at the very end. One thing that I want to point out, if you already have a license of VExDAM with valid maintenance, you'll receive access to version 9 free of charge. If your maintenance is expired, it will need to be updated in order to receive access to this new version as well as to the support team. So jumping into the pricing overview, this table here shows the costs for a single license of each of the ExDAM modules. I've also included VExDAM here. It is not an ExDAM module itself, but it's a great companion program to ExDAM. And when we cover discounts, we offer a multiple module discount, and we include VExDAM within that. So you'll see here the prices for HExDAM, VExDAM, HExFrag, and 3D Extend. Now, with your purchase, you will receive access to 1 year of maintenance and support, which will provide you with access to the latest software versions as well as to the brief support team. You'll also receive a USB hardware key. VExDAM utilizes a USB hardware key licensing system, so we'll ship this to you free of charge. You'll also receive access to a comprehensive user manual and all the features that Brian covered today, of course, depending on the module that you purchase. So in terms of the discounts that we offer, first we offer a multiple license discount. So this is valid for the purchase of 2 or more licenses of one of the ExDAM modules made within the same transaction. So an example of this is if you're interested in purchasing 6 licenses of the HExDAM module, for example. With this discount, the first license will be purchased at full price, and each additional license will be discounted 50%. So for example, if you're interested in purchasing 3 licenses of HExDAM, the first license will be the initial cost, which is $10,995, and the other 2 licenses will be half off of that. So essentially, you're getting a buy 2, get 1 free deal with this multiple license discount. We also offer a multiple module discount, as I mentioned previously. This is valid for the purchase of 2 or more modules made within the same transaction. So an example of this is if you're interested in purchasing the HExDAM module and the HExFrag module. The multiple module discount ranges from 5 to 15%, depending on the number of modules that you're interested in purchasing. We also provide an academic discount. This is applicable for those associated with universities or academies, and it's only applicable if the user will be using the software for solely academic purposes, such as classroom instruction or university-funded research. And with this discount, the software will be discounted 50%. In order to be eligible for this discount, we ask that the user send us a signed letter on university letterhead stating the intended uses of the software. We also offer site and enterprise license discounts. These are typically valid for the purchase of about 10 or more licenses of VExDAM, and it's a pretty hefty discount compared to even the multiple license discount. And lastly, for the month of June, we're offering a 10% discount on software purchases. So if you're interested in purchasing VExDAM, you'll receive this 10% discount as well if you make your purchase by June 30th. In addition to this, we also offer short-term leases. So if you don't expect to use the software for a long amount of time, we can provide you with a 1, 3, 6, or 9-month lease of any of the ExDAM modules. And so if you're interested in purchasing a lease, or if you're interested in purchasing multiple licenses, multiple modules, feel free to reach out to us and we can provide you with a quote for your specific order. So with that, we'll take a look and see if we have any questions. If we haven't had any come in, you're more than welcome to send those questions to us if you think of any after the webinar, either via email or feel free to give us a call. And it doesn't look like any questions have been asked since we started that pricing portion. So we will go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. We'll send, again, just as a reminder, we'll send all the slides to you. We will send the recording from today's presentation to you, and you should receive this sometime tomorrow. But again, if you have any questions that you think of after the webinar, just feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll be happy to answer those. But thank you for taking time out of your day to participate in this webinar. We hope you learned a lot, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.